welcome everyone. It's good to see you. I got a bright light in my eye, but I see you all out there. Thanks for coming. Thanks for spending your time here. I have a lot of stuff to cram in, let's say, roughly an hour or so. And I want to make this presentation somewhat interactive. So if you have a question you want to, go ahead and ask, please raise your hand. Now, in a group this size, there's usually one person, and you know who you are, that's going to ask maybe that technically obscure question that only you care about. So why don't you raise your hand now so we can identify you? And then we have like security come and escort you out. So I originally had planned for doing tips and tricks, but there's so many amazing features built into Final Cut Pro 10.2 that I really wanted to focus on those. And it really does play into some of my favorite tricks with regard to color grading and color correction. And to me, color correction and masks are like brother and sister. They just fit well together, especially with regard to secondary color correction. Just quick definition is like primary is like grading the image as a whole. Secondary is grading the image or portions of the image using masks and keys and whatnot. So that's what that's what I'm going to focus on primarily throughout my next hour or so. All right. So without much further introduction, let's just get into it. I have a timeline with a bunch of stuff, and then I'm gonna hopefully get through most of it this afternoon. But right now, I want to talk a little bit about the two ways you can apply masks in Final Cut Pro 10. I have my playhead parked over a clip in my hometown of Prescott, Arizona, and I'm kind of shooting at a tall angle. And I'm going to go ahead and create a kind of a tilt-shifty-like effect, where you kind of look like everything looks miniature and highly saturated, and where it kind of plays with your perception of what's in focus and what isn't, because you're like looking down you're supposed to be looking down at something. And here, this is the shot without any sort of mask applied to it. So I'm going to park the playhead, and I'm going to hit Command 5 to open up the effects browser. And I'll go down here and I'll type in Gaussian blur, and I'll grab this and drop that on that clip right there. And of course, it applies this big old blur on top of the image. I'm going to go ahead and open the inspector by pressing Command 4. And this is the new part. I'm going to move my mouse pointer over here above and the effect bar here, and you'll see there's a new icon. I like to zoom in. I like to do hyper zooms. But there it is. There's the little icon. If you click that, you'll notice there are masks for effects. Every effect now has a mask built into it. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and choose a shape mask. And immediately you can see that the effect is constrained to that mask. And this is a little thing, and it's just so important to me. I can now grab this little handle, and I can create a perfect square now instead of a rounded one. All right. So the other thing is I'm going to go ahead and stretch this mask out. And as per the previous version, you can go ahead and adjust the mask feathering. Of course, wait a minute, something looks wrong. They need to invert it. So the great thing is I can go back to the mask bar, click this little icon, and choose that, invert. Let's see where it is. Click that. Oops. You know what I have on here is a color correction. Let me just disable that for a moment. That's not supposed to be on. Anyway, I'll go back over here and click this mask icon and choose invert mask. And just like that, it's inverted. And so you could see what's going on here. And you have parameter controls for the amount of blur. And by the way, all these masks now can be keyframed. Okay? So that's pretty great. I'm going to jump into the color board, and the reason I had the color correction effect applied is that you go ahead and I saturated the image. And another thing that's new about Final Cut is that you can apply effects now, or color correction effects, as a standalone effect. I'll talk more about this, but this is really important in that you can change the processing order of operations now. So right now I have the Gaussian blur applied on top of the color correction. Now I can grab this Gaussian blur and I can drag it up. Now the color correction is applied on top of the Gaussian blur. And that's a really important thing for broadcast. Let's say you have something, your white levels are too hot, and you still want to maintain detail. You might want to swap the order so that you can still maintain broadcast quality and still get that look that you're after. So the processing pipeline is really the main reason why you have a separate color correction effect now. Okay, so that's something I wanted to point your attention to. Let's look at another way you can apply. So that was what I call an effect mask. So every single effect in the browser, if you add it to a clip, we'll have that bar which you can add a mask to. That's pretty cool. All right, let's move on. Let's look at something. Let's start getting into color correction just a little bit. This is one of my favorite examples in that I have this shot of a typical day in Los Angeles, and the sky is just a little bit dull. And I'd like to kind of make it pop a little bit more. So I'm going to go down to the color section, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it on here. Now, this is a great trick. You're thinking, God, do I have to like drag the color correction wheel on there, effect on every single time? No. If you park the play it over the clip, press Command 6, then make any change in the color board. It doesn't matter what that change is. When you go back to the inspector, that color effect will be applied automatically. So that should save you a few clicks along the way. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and remove that from right now. And I want to go ahead and apply what's effectively a key. I want to do a key where I select the sky. So I'm going to grab this color correction effect, drop that on there, and you'll wonder, well, where'd those two effects for isolating the different colors go? Well, it's pretty much in the same place as the effect I showed you for the Gaussian blur. You just click there, and you have a shape mask and a color mask. So in this case, I'm going to choose Add Color Mask, and as any good keyer interface would have it, I have a little eyedropper, and I'm going to sample the blue sky between these palm trees. So I'm going to click and drag outward, kind of drag a circle here, right? And I'm going to move down here. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, and notice the plus sign. I'm going to add a little bit more to my mask, go down here, add a little bit more. This is one of the best dang keyers I've ever worked with. And you're like, wow, that's great. Let's look at the mask. Check this out. This is new. I go over here, click this button, View Masks. Woo, there's my mask. All right, so I can now see my mask. Now here's the thing. If you still want to do it the old way, which was you had to hold on a modifier and click on the option, well, here's the thing. It used to be the option key. Now it's the command key. All right? So get with the program. You got to say command. So if you command drag on that softness slider, you'll get the same effect. And all the slider does is it's a tolerance slider. It'll adds more luminance range pixels to your key or not. But I'm just command dragging on that slider to adjust the key. But there it is. But you know what? It's less useful now because you just turn the mask button on and then drag the slider. Right? Okay, good. Now, I'm going to jump into the color board, clicking this button here. And these controls are consistent from the previous version in that I can make color grades inside the mask boundary or outside the mask. When I'm talking about the inside, I mean all of the pixels that ended up white that are going to be affected. So what I'm going to do is leave that set for inside, and I'm going to, actually, just so we can see what I'm doing, I'm going to turn off the masks, go back into the color board, and I'm going to go into the color board itself, and I'm going to take this, let's see, I'll take this global puck here, and I'm going to just so you can see what's happening, I'm just going to push this around so you can see it's affecting the color just in that color key area. Now, I'm going to go ahead and move it into the blue and I'll pump it up a little bit and say, wow, I'm looking like really a nice Southern California day there. Okay, but I don't even know if that's the right color blue. It looks right, and I'm not one for judging shots entirely subjectively, so I really recommend doing this with scopes. So I'm going to press Command 7 to reveal the scopes, and one thing that you'll notice, and we'll get more into this later, is that you now have these scope layouts. So you can change the up. You can go with a 4-up display or a 2-up display. And I'm just going to, right now, just going to go with a single up display, and I want to set this for vector scope. The reason I want to set it for vector scope is because I'm not sure where blue is supposed to fall. So if I go back here, and I'm going to go ahead and turn off the effect for a moment, you'll see that blue really is closer to cyan on the color wheel and not as close to blue. So that's what I'm saying about color grading. It's very important to get in the habit of looking at the scopes, because what you think is the right color is actually the wrong color, right? So this is more like the objective viewpoint of the world, your scopes. So I'm going to go back into the color board after re-enabling the effect, go back to the color board, and now when I adjust the blue, I know that that blue is more around here, and then I can pump it up for there, pump it up from about there, and I'm, again, using the scopes as kind of a guide for where the blue should be. And then I'll go ahead and play that back, and there we go. There is my really cool, just missing Beach Boys music. All right. Excellent. Now, let's play, what should we do next? It'd be a lot of fun. Oh, we'll find this. You'll find this a lot of fun. I'm going to go to this shot of Jocelyn, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a bit. And when I look at this shot, I say to myself, you know, she looks correctly exposed, but the shutters are so bright behind her that that's where my eye goes. In fact, subjectively, almost any image you look at that has a lot of bright pixels in it, that's where your eye goes. It just does. So I want to tone down those shutters while maintaining the exposure in her face. Okay? So what I'm going to do is use a couple of masks. I'm going to go ahead and grab this color correction. I'll just drop it on there, right? Go back to the main inspector. And I'm going to click this little button, and I'm going to choose Add Color Mask. Go ahead and choose that. And I'm going to go ahead and sample. I'm going to create, sample up here by her head. Clicking, I'm going to just drag outward. See how much I can get there. And let's see. Okay, that's not terrible. But does anybody see any problems with this going forward? What's that? Yeah, I have some problems with the paper, okay? Now, before I get to that, I'm going to talk to you about why I really like these scopes with multiple layouts. I'm going to go back over to this little gear menu, and I'm going to choose, well, actually, the view menu, and I'm going to choose 2 up. Okay, where's my 2 up? There it is, my 2 up. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because I'm primarily interested in controlling the contrast, the luminance of this shot. And so I've always wanted to have 2 waveforms side by side. Like I want a RGB waveform and I want a luminance waveform side by side, and now I can. Or maybe I want an RGB waveform, but on this side, perhaps I want a histogram. So I find that really useful in that I have what these scopes are giving me is essentially different perspectives of the image, where the waveform gives me a kind of the distribution of red, green, and blue luminance colors in the image. The histogram is really showing me the distribution, how many of a certain brightness pixel exist in the image. And you can see that this tall spike is telling me that, look, there's a lot of white pixels in this image. So I like to have that histogram view open when I'm doing color grading. Excellent. Now, let's go back to the masks. So I'm going to go back to View Masks. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and do a little more work here. I'm going to add another mask. I'm going to click this button here, and I'm going to add a shape mask. Okay, and let's go ahead and turn View Masks off for a moment. And I'm going to go ahead and shape this mask into more of a square. And I'm going to reduce the feathering. And really what I want to do is put this mask over this section of the book. Okay? Now, what's happening with the mask? So if I turn on View Masks, okay, what's happening? Okay, I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. The shape mask is being added on top of the color mask. And what's happening is you have a blend mode down here where that color mask is now intersecting with that shape mask, and it's only producing this little area of the mask. So this is huge when I'm about to show you. You can now take these masks and reorient them. So now this mask is here, and it's being added to the mask. I want to subtract it. And now I have that area knocked out, right? So what I can do is I have another area over here that I would like to add a mask to. So I'm going to go back to the bar, and I'm going to choose Add Shape Mask. And I'll go ahead and shape this into a square again and reduce the feathering. And let's go ahead and move this into place over here like this. And then go back to here and drag this shape mask. Now, I find it's helpful to drag on the left side of the visibility toggle for some reason. It just does. And then bring that down. Go up here, say subtract. And look at this. You could just keep stacking and stacking and stacking masks. Really handy for this type of color correction. But the fun doesn't end there. You can go in here and you could double click this mask and you could type out book mask. And you can go, so you could label these, which I find really handy. Shoulder mask. There you go. Now, what I want to do is go back to the color board. So I turn view masks off. Let's jump back into the color board by clicking this button here. And you'll notice that we still have inside selected, which means we're going to be working, with the white areas of the frame. And at this point, this is why I have my scopes up. I need to see what the value is. I'm adjusting the exposure. And as I was telling my color grading class this morning, your whites should never be at 100%. They just shouldn't. They should be really at 90% or below. And now that I see the histogram and I can see my RGB parade, I can now grab the highlight puck or the target, and I can just drag this downward. And as I'm doing, I'm watching the scopes to see that histogram fall to around the 90% range, like that. So I'm severely reducing the amount of brightness in those shutters, and just the shutters. It's not affecting anything else. What's also nice is I can continue doing some color grades. I'm looking at this going, that's great, but the shutters are they're just a tad bit too bright, and she's being hit with a little bit of tungsten light. It just has a feeling of a lighting cocktail to me. So I'm going to go back to the color board, and let's see, I'll take the highlights puck, and I'll move this into the orange, the kind of the reddish section, and I'll just boost the saturation just a little bit, and just warm that section up just a bit. Now, when I go back, I want you to see a before and after. And for me, color correction is often about just subtleties. It's like little adjustments here and there. It's not about big, wide, sweeping adjustments, just little things to just make the shot pop a little crisper, add a little color, and for me, that's what a lot of this is. So I have this shot. Now, I want to toggle the effects. I'll go ahead and toggle the entire effect. So if you can see, that's quite a difference in the grade there, just by those three masks. All right, ready for the next one? This is pretty neat. I know that I have similar shots that I'm going to end up cutting back to of Jocelyn, right? So it's like, I don't want to have to redo that on every single shot. So you'll notice there is a new button down here called a Save Effect Preset. If you click this, you can now save any effect presets for your clip. Now, there's only one effect being saved here, color correction, but later I'll do one that includes multiple effects, and it saves them all. And then you can then save them into a category of your choosing, and then name it, and then save it. And also, all of these features can be keyframes. So if you have keyframes applied to your masks, those keyframes get stored with the effect when you save it. So what I'm going to do is I've already pre-saved it, so I'm going to move my playhead over the top, and if I go into Steve's client, notice that I have this one that I saved earlier called Jocelyn Couch. So all I need to do is skim over it, and look, it's that same effect that I just created on the previous shot. I'm going to go ahead and grab that and just boop, drop it there, and I can keep going. So this is huge to be able to save very complex effects that you're storing up inside that you're creating for your clips in the inspector. You can save them and then just drag and drop them and on your clip. Now, this is kind of neat. This is outside what people would say is kind of the manual, but here's the thing. People, what if I wanted to share my effects with friends and family? Okay, you can do that, or another editor, if you control click, you can reveal where that effect is in the Finder. And it will take you to where it is, and then you could, zip it up, send it around, and you could share effects with people. I think that's awesome. All right, cool. All right, C. So far, so good.
Sorry.
Yes, question.
What if I don't have the preset after?
That is a good question. That question came up in my color question class, the exact question. What if I hand off my project to another editor somewhere, and they open it up, and they put the playhead there, and there's what's going to happen to the effect? Well, I haven't tested it, but I'm fairly certain that there won't be any effect applied to it. Okay.
Where does it save?
It's saved. It's saved in your user, library, application support, motion. Okay, it's buried 10 layers of Dante's hell to get to it. That's why I right-click on it and I do a reveal in Finder. Right? Isn't that a good command to have? Yeah.
When you share it, like, how do you
Sorry.
put it in Final Cut?
Huh?
What does that person have to then?
No, what I do is you put it in the same directory.
There's no easy way to
You could stand on your left and throw it.
Just create a folder.
Yeah, just create a folder, put it in there. So look, I don't know. I showed you where it is. You figure it out. I'm sorry, there's another question over here.
It becomes universal to your Final Cut
Yes, yeah.
system.
Yep.
It's not applied to the library or the project.
No, it's a user setting. It's a user setting. That's why it's in the library. You can do that option thing where the library thing shows up, right? Right, exactly. Okay. All right, thanks. So good question. No, these are great questions. So if you got more like that, just throw them out there. All right, let's have some more fun. Oh, I like this next shot. All right. So here we have this sweet little girl standing in a hotel room, and it was shot. It was shot with my 5D Mark III. And the contrast, I have a lot more brightness on her face here. Maybe we can adjust the contrast a little bit on the projector because I can't see her face. But she does have a face. Okay, it's not pre-color graded. So what I'm going to do is use a brand new mask to isolate this creepy little girl from her background, and then show you some really fun stuff you could do. All right. So the first thing I'm going to want to do is copy this clip below itself as a connected clip. So I'm going to hold down the Option key, then drag downward. So I create a connected clip. And I'm going to go ahead and temporarily disable that clip by pressing V. Okay, I'll re-enable it later, but right now I don't want it to get in the way of the mask that I'm going to create. So I have the playhead parked over the clip, and I'm going to go to this category, brand new category, masks. Pretty self-explanatory. There are 5 new masks: draw masks, graduated masks, image masks, shape masks, and vignette masks. Okay, you have 5 masks here. The one that you'll probably find the most use for is the draw mask, and you'll see why in a moment. I'm going to take that mask and drop it onto little Ava right there. You will be prompted immediately to start clicking to add control points. So what I'm going to do is just be an obedient editor and do what I'm being told to do, and I'm going to start clicking, and I'm going to start creating a mask. And when I get to her shoulder, I've got a problem. Click, hold. Let's actually do this again. Click, hold, and there we go. Bezier curves. Click, hold, Bezier curves. I'm not going to be worried about her head right now. I'm just going to create some what are effectively control points around her head and her shoulders. And let's go ahead and close up that shape. You get a little circle, close up the shape. Now, some of the things that you could do in this mask is, let's zoom in here, is this is a linear mask shape now. If you control click on the point, you can convert it to a smooth point and now adjust the shape very, very easily. Control click, smooth, and you're adjusting the smoothness of that mask. You can see there's sometimes, and again, I don't worry about whether I get the curve right, because then I can use these tangent handles to adjust the mask. Okay? What's also nice is that if for some reason you need more control points, you simply double-click right on the mask boundary and add another control point. Right? It's very, very handy. So I've got this nice mask to isolate Ava from her background. Now, I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out, and I'm going to select the bottom clip, and I'm going to re-enable it by pressing B, then pressing Command 6 to reveal the color board. Now I'm going to go back to the exposure pane, and I'm going to start making the background a little bit more ominous. So I'm going to start dragging pulling some of the mids down, maybe some of the highlights, reduce some of those highlights back there. By the way, I can add more masks there to mitigate the effect of these windows by adding masks, similar to what I did previously with Jocelyn sitting on the couch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and just to give it kind of an overall creepy feel, I'm going to go to the color board, and I'm going to grab the global puck, and I'm just going to push everything to these really cool, these blue tones. Okay. So what I've done here is I've isolated my subject from her background. I'm color grading the background separately using the mask, and now let's do one other thing. It's a lot of fun. So because I have her isolated on the top layer, let's see what happens when we add a different effect. So I'm going to go back to the effects browser, and in the search field, I'm going to type in flash for flashing, and I'm going to drag this flashing effect onto the top Ava clip. And now I've got this really cool, I'm constraining that effect to within the mask. So I've got a lot of stuff going on here. And then, of course, I can go back to the color board, the inspector, and I can select the amount of the intensity of the flashing that I want here. And this can all be keyframed. And so I have just with a couple of layers and a mask, I can do some pretty sophisticated compositing with the masks. All right, excellent. Let's look at what else I want to show you. All right, let's take a minute and let's look at some looks. All right. So I'm going to go back here, and I wanted to make this point. I wanted to drive a little harder on this point I was going to make about saving effects with lots of characteristics. So here's a look where I have my friend Rachel. She's in a truck, and it's got this nice blue tint to it. See, there are looks built into Final Cut Pro 10. They've always been there. But whether they've been useful or not is a completely different story. So if you go back to the looks category in the effects browser, and let me go ahead and clear out the search field, you'll notice that there are a bunch of looks. I'm going to park the playhead over the clip where there's no effects applied. And by the way, since I'm not using the scopes right now, I'm going to hide them. Oops. And Command 7. There we go. I think Final Cut Pro is so much cleaner without all these windows and panes open. So I have Rachel here, and these are looks to be sure. So, for example, I could, if I skim over this is a look, kind of a tint. And if I added this effect, one of the reasons I don't like these particular looks is that there's very, very little control over them. You usually have like an amount slider, and you can change the color, and you can protect skin. But in my experience, it doesn't really protect skin all that much. But there's just, my point being, there's just not a lot of options. So now, you don't even really need rely on those looks. You can build your own looks. And in fact, let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and remove that cast. And with my playhead parked over the clip, I'm going to go back to the color category. And I'm going to drag this black and white effect, which Final Cut considers black and white a color effect, because you use it a lot of times to desaturate. And I find this particular effect very useful. You'll see why. I'm going to drop that effect on that clip. And if you click this little arrow, you have a color field that allows you to choose a color that you're mapping your black and white to. And I like this a lot because I can blow out my whites by just putting my mouse pointer here. I got a nice blown out look where I'm not interested in the detail in the background, okay? So that's great. Now I want to tint this clip. So I started with a base desaturation. Now I'm going to add a color grade on top of the base black and white effect. I'm going to go ahead and open up the inspector, and I'm going to go into the color board here and grab this global puck, and I'm just going to start pushing this towards blue. Maybe I want a nice blue tint, and I can really make it saturated, or I can dial it off a little bit. But I just maybe want a tinge of blue in the midtones. I actually very much like tint looks, and this is a better way to create them than, again, the previous method I showed you. So if I go back here to the inspector, I now have a black and white effect, and I have a color correction effect. Now, if I bring up the scopes by hitting Command 7, I've got some problems here. I'm going to go back to let's see here. Go to RGB overlay, and you could see that I've got, well, everything's above 100. It's going to get rejected by broadcast, something that you're not going to want to have happen. All right, so you're going to want to reduce that. So I'm going to go back to the color board, and in this case, I'm always a proponent of making sure your stuff is broadcast legal. Okay. The other way you could set this up, I mean, you could do that, but then notice I'm bringing some of the detail back into the shot. Okay, maybe I don't want that. I'm going to leave it where I'm going to go ahead and leave that where it is, and go back to the color board, color effects area, and you'll notice there's a broadcast safe filter. So I could take this broadcast safe filter and throw it on top of that, and you'll notice that, well, it should make everything broadcast legal. And it's down here and applied. So you have black and white, color correction, then broadcast safe. Let me see here. Go back to, let me go to Luma. And you could see that the levels for that effect is we're under 100. So we're good. Okay, and that's very, very important. Now, what you could do, and this is what's great, is you can change the order of operations. So, like I said earlier, you can move the black and white effect. You can move the black and white effect so it appears over the color correction, or you can move it down here over the broadcast safe, and you can change the processing pipeline, as it were. And it's very, very handy when you want to maintain broadcast safe and get the effect that you want. Now, in this case, I have 3 effects applied, and I can just go to the Save Effects preset. And this is what I wanted to show you earlier, that effect is being stored right here. And when you save the effect is saved in the same order of operations that it's applied in the inspector. So that won't change at all. So we'll go ahead, if you go ahead and click Save, I'll go ahead and call this, let's see, Rachel Blue Tint. And let's see where I'm going to save it. Steve's client, click Save. And so then you'll find it back in the category, back over here. Steve client, and then there's the Rachel tint right there. And I can move to the next clip, and I can skim, and maybe it doesn't really work on that clip, but the idea is the same. Okay, so that is what I call tint looks that can be saved as kind of a bundle that you can then reapply. I personally going to use that feature quite a bit to save what I call, in Final Cut Legacy, I used to call them filter packs. That was my term for them. Yeah, and so you're saving like a filter pack as a single entity in the effects browser. So I find it pretty fun. All right, let's show you another mask. What I want to do is get through maybe a couple more and then open it up for questions. Does that sound good? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to remove the effect. I'm going to remove this effect, actually here. One thing that I wish, by the way, I have a YouTube channel for a Final Cut called Under 5. It just hit 9,000 subscribers today. And one of the things that I have one video, it's called 10 Things I Want in Final Cut 10. And you know the kid that, like, I got all my Christmas presents, but I didn't get the Red Rider. Well, the Red Rider for me was remove attributes.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. Is it?
Did we get it?
No. I'm just being honest. Look, I'm like, yay, where's my Red Rider? Okay. So, well, Well, because now, you're right, so I'm going to have to do this, unfortunately, okay? I'm just telling you, that's what I want. Give me remove attributes. Okay, now, I am going to, sometimes I use color grading for makeup enhancement. Some YouTube girl that has like 2 million views, show me how to enhance my lips, or how to like make my lips brighter or redder or whatever. You can use color correction for a lot of makeup enhancement all the time. So I'm going to show you a new tool that's really good for this. It's another mask tool, but before I do, I'm going to take Rachel, and I'm going to go in option drag, and I'm just going to move her down here, and I'm going to select her and just press V to disable, and we're going to go back to the masks category, and I'm going to grab this draw mask again and drop it on the Rachel clip, and I'm going to press Command 7 to close the scopes, and I want to zoom in a bit. So you can see what. Oops. Go ahead and zoom here. There we go, 75%, and let's zoom in a little bit here. I want you to see what I'm about to. Maybe go a little bit more there. Now, you'll notice I have a pen tool, but more than that, the shape type. Earlier, when I created the mask around the little creepy girl, that was a Bezier mask. But you also have B-spline masks built into Final Cut Pro 10. This is really an important tool, specifically for creating masks around more organic shapes that don't have so many angles or perfect, kind of curves. And here's why. I'm going to just start clicking to add a mask around her lips. And the thing about this is almost like connect the dots. You just follow the object that you want to mask. In this case, I'm just going here, and I'll close the mask off. And this is what I wanted to show you. What makes B-spline masks interesting is that they're always curves. In fact, the lines between each mask control point is actually it looks like a rubber band. If I pull the mask tangent away, you'll notice that it forms a curve. And that's important to understand about B-splines, is that they're organic, that every control point you add is a curve. And so it gives you more control when you're shaping masks that are like this. And at any point, you could add additional mask points by just double-clicking. There you go, you got another mask point. There you go. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do next is I need to invert the mask. And there's an invert button over here. So I'm going to invert. And she looks kind of goth now. So what I want to do is select the bottom layer, turn it back on, press Command 6. Remember, I don't have to drag a color effect onto it. I just make a change in the color board, right? In this case, I'm going to go to the color board, and I'm going to just grab the global slider. Actually, no, let's just do this easier. Let's just crank up the saturation, okay? So I'm going to crank up the saturation here. Go back to the mask here, and I can see that I've got some problems, so I'm going to go ahead and, this might have been a different frame that I started, but you can just move the mask here, all right? Now, if I go back to the main inspector here, you'll notice there's transforms for all the masks: position, rotation, and scale. So I could set keyframes for position and rotation and scale if I wanted, but I'm not going to scale this. I'm going to just now start stepping through the mask. So I moved it a frame, and I'm just going to grab the mask and move there. By the way, you'll notice the keyframe for position was automatically added. Tap, tap, tap. Now, I'm thinking, what would be really awesome is if a awesome tracker was built into Final Cut. That's on my Christmas list too, right? I'm just telling you what I want, man. So the idea is I'm tracking this mask. And look, this is something you could not do in previous. You could not track masks in Final Cut Pro previous versions to this. In fact, if I go over here, and there's a button that I want to direct your attention to, that button there. That's handy when you don't want to see the mask lines. You just turn that off. And what's nice is when that's off, you can then, go through and see, oh, oops, maybe there's a problem there, and then you can go back in and turn it on. You also have this really great view called composite and original. So there's the original where you're looking at it without, the composite, and then there it is with the composite. So there's lots of tools built into the draw mask. And again, that's one of 5 different masks built into Final Cut Pro 10. Okay, let's see, I think that's almost everything, and I just want to make sure there's nothing really super, oh, you got to see this. Let's take a look real quick. As I'm doing this, I'm looking, is there any questions that stand out? Yes, sir.
Yes, the thing about the color correction being part of the effects now.
Yes.
What happens with the white balance and and the color match
Well,
and the broadcast safe?
well, color match is still part of the interface. It should be.
In the same place than before.
I don't know. Let's see. That may be a question, and that'd be something. Let's see here. Hey, let's. All right, click in here. Let's go ahead and I'm going to, select. I'm going to park my playhead over there, and let's see. There was one change to. Let's see. I'm going to select. Oh, option click. Let's see here. There's match color. So I'm not sure there. So I want to match. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match that shot, and I'm going to pick a frame here. So I'm going to click. Maybe I want to match it to that frame. Click. Apply match. And so it's there. So I don't. Was that an answer to your question? Because
What happens now with the broadcast safe?
Right.
It's not in the same stack of
He's asking basically, since you changed the color, does the broadcast safe carry along with that? Is that right?
well, I get.
It's actually a new effect.
Well, I guess I'm not understanding the question. The broadcast safe is applied as a completely separate effect.
Yes, but it's on top of the match color.
I believe so. Yeah. Look. I have to admit, I have been using this for a little bit, but there's still stuff I'm discovering. So yes. Huh?
You can say that.
I can say that. I can say I've had a sneak peek. How's that? But I don't know. I'd have to play with it a little bit more. I'd rather just tell you I'm not sure. Yeah.
Can you use track X in combination with this?
Yeah, well, TrackX is a third-party piece of software that's really a lot more than this because it's a planar tracker. So it's not just one 2D. And I'm going to be interviewing the editor from Focus tomorrow night, and one of the things we're going to be talking about is his use of TrackX to track Margot Robbie's head, for the scene. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So yes, you could use them in combination. But the Slice X certainly has far more tools than just this. This is a simple mask that I'm just keyframing. Yeah.
Well, that's okay. There's always the published new features they throw out there, but there's always some hidden stuff that they don't kind of put out there. Is there anything that you've seen so far in your limited time with it?
Steve Martin nuggets.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's see if I can pull this off. Let's see. Yeah. No. I see your point. Let's see. File. Open library. Let's see if I can. Let's open this. Base CD button. Yeah. I'll update it. I don't care. All right. So, obviously, if you update previous projects that were created, you can't go back. So make sure you back them up. All right. So now I'm here, and I've got some music. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. I'm going to zoom in. And I believe this is, can I just show you one that I think is there, and if I nail it, it'll be like awesome. Let's see if I can remember. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press R, and I'm going to drag out a range, okay? And you know about that, right? And you know how you can reduce the volume, correct? All right, let's see. Let's see if it's still there. Here we go. Doop, 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 doop. Let's see. Adjust volume. There it is. Silence. Boom. It just silences it between the range now, and it creates perfect 4 keyframes. Oops. It creates 4 keyframes, and you could knock out a chunk that makes a perfect silence between your range. All right, there, I did it. That was someone, my editor showed me that before, I go, when did they put that in there? So I kind of filed it away. So really good question, actually. Excellent. So and this is why this is important to me, because I do a lot of voiceover editing, and normally what I do is actually I'm working on a compound clip, so this is just the worst. What I do is I normally option double click on the waveform, and the reason I usually like to edit voiceover in component mode, because when I'm in component mode, the range tool is always selected. But then when I needed to make a cut, I'd have to click out of component mode and then Command B to cut. And it was a little bit kludgy. So I found that now that I have this really awesome silence tool, I don't even have to I can do everything without actually stepping in to to reveal the components. I just don't have to do it now. And I find that to be, keyboard shortcut looks like, you can, oh yeah. Right. So you can make one, but the point is now, that's going to be very useful to me now with a keyboard shortcut. Drag out a range, silence. Drag out a range, silence, 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 silence. There you go. All right. Awesome. Any more questions? Yes?
Can you refine the key better when you were creating that map before? There was a ring around a hair. But when I get into refining maps, I find myself getting stuck. I know it's not a keying class, and if you don't want to do it, that's fine.
Are we talking about keying, or are you talking about you're selecting the?
Is the hair on that shot?
Yeah, it was kind of a down and dirty mat, wasn't it?
Okay.
All right. Yeah, I agree.
Are there tricks for that? I guess.
Yeah.
Time and place.
There are certainly some tools that really make, if you're really having a hard time. I mean, obviously that the palm trees of the sky was fairly straightforward. First of all, start with the best footage you can. ProRes 422 10, if you can.
I feel like there's a point that you hit a wall here.
There's some really great advanced keying tutorials I came across just
Yeah.
recently that probably some of yours.
And-
But definitely learn some of the pull downs. You can do a lot with there's some level sliders and stuff. Just recently I started pushing myself and watching some additional tutorials, and the answers are there. It's a little hard to do off the top of my
Do they
head.
have like shrinking and growth in there?
All of that's in there already for color keying. You're talking
For color
about, right?
keying.
Are you talking about color keying or the map?
No, for keying.
Right, I understand keying, but for
Color mask.
for the color keyer, there's grow and shrink already. Twirl down all those things. The thing that I've been noticing all day, because we've been seeing little bits all day, is that there's a lot of little things in here that are, it's like, oh, I love that, I'm so glad there's that. But when you look at it from a marketing standpoint, nobody in their right mind would go, and now we have this,
Well, look, you got to admit, that's typical Steve Jobs. If you think about it, it's like, you didn't know you needed a 3D tool, did you?
Exactly.
No, now you need a 3D tool.
And then I watched
Right?
Mark
Right.
Cuban played your
Yeah.
trailer with all the things, like, oh yeah, that's a bunch of ways I would totally use 3D.
Totally.
hadn't thought
I
of.
didn't know I needed
There's
it.
a lot of
Yeah.
little refinements and
Yeah.
tweaks that you just go, oh, I'm so glad there's that. But yeah, I would love to have that red rider, remove attributes BB gun.
Yeah, I totally would.
Boom, boom, boom,
real
boom.
quick thing is, over the Super Meet, Mark and I did like training on Final Cut and full motion training. We have them on a little USB stick. You can get both of them for $50 at the,
really?
the Super Meet. Yeah, they're normally on our site's like $120, but.
Now, you've been doing some new stuff with your website too. What about
Well,
that?
we've added a streaming player now, so you can actually watch your videos on your phone, iPad, and we got away from iTunes. Woo! Yeah, that was big. So yeah, we reconfigured the site, so now you just log in and essentially it's stream anywhere.
Right.
Vis-a-vis.
Without a doubt, if you want to learn Final Cut, these are the guys to go to. You are the only people I've ever paid money to learn from.
Oh, that's sweet. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Steve Martin, thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much.